Coming up on Lawmakers, a measure designed to help Georgians combat identity theft passes the House. Governor Perdue announces a plan to insure more Georgians. And plans to ease Georgia's transportation woes are on the way. Those stories and more are coming up next.
This is Lawmakers, your source for all the news from under the Gold Dome. Here are your anchors, and Wandy Lawson and David Zelski.
Good evening. Also on Lawmakers, a Senate committee hears testimony on the EPA's proposal to tighten air quality regulations.
Representative Barry Fleming speaks out on today's developments in the Brian Nichols trial.
And it was Forestry Awareness Day at the Capitol. But first, our top story tonight, the House and Senate passed legislation to combat identity theft. The House passes legislation today to offer more protections to consumers when it comes to identity theft. And Lawmakers Sandra Parrish joins us live with the details. Sandra.
David, it's taken 3 years for House Bill 130 to come to the floor for a vote. If it's signed into law, Georgia would become the 40th state to offer a credit freeze for its consumers, the first to make it an instant one.
We have been very good to business. It's time that we passed a bill that is for consumers.
House Bill 130 would allow consumers to freeze their credit with the 3 credit reporting agencies if they felt their personal information had been compromised.
It is not going to stop someone from stealing your wallet, writing bad checks, or using your credit card. What it will do is prevent people from taking your information and opening new accounts in your name.
Now, to do so, they just need to contact the CRA either by mail, telephone, or electronic means like the internet, and establish their identity, and then request a freeze. And then the CRA will send you a PIN number. That's your own unique identification number that you can save and utilize to unlock or thaw your freeze whenever you want to, if you want to go out and open up your credit.
The question over how much companies could charge was a sticking point. Originally $10 to freeze and unfreeze, but amended to $3.
When your fee is $10, that's per reporting agency, that's really $30. And if you're a married couple, you really have to freeze both people's credit, or else you don't have the protection. As the married people in the room know, you travel with your spouse's credit, whether it be good or bad. They come as a pair. So double the $30. Now we're talking about $60.
It was high enough that people weren't going to do it. And so at $3, this is the cheapest insurance policy you could ever buy to prevent identity theft. I love this.
WSB radio consumer expert Clark Howard says it's a deal any way you look at it.
The fact that I can thaw my credit that fast means that this is the best of all possible worlds. I prevent somebody from stealing my identity, but I don't prevent myself from conducting the business I need to conduct legitimately.
House members voted not 1 but 3 times on another amendment that ultimately requires the credit reporting agencies to offer the service via mail, phone, fax, or online.
It is so important because the credit bureaus want this to be a real hassle for you to freeze your credit file. So making it easy for you to freeze or thaw your credit is really awful for them, because it means more people will take advantage of this. Now, the reason this is so upsetting to the credit bureaus is the easier it is for you to control your own information, the less money the bureaus can make packaging you and selling you off over and over and over again. And so this attacks the heart of how they make their money.
Now, of the 3 credit reporting agencies, Equifax is the only one based here in Atlanta. We attempted to get a response from them, but a company representative tells me the measure is still in the legislative process and they're not yet ready to comment. Reporting live, I'm Sandra Parrish for Lawmakers.
Thank you, Sandra. At least 500,000 uninsured Georgians could move into the private health insurance rolls, according to Governor Perdue. Today, he unveiled details of his health reform plan.
Different reasons people don't have insurance. Some think they're going to live forever and they're immortal and will never need it. That's part of our young crowd, and we've got to persuade them that they do. Part of it is economic, and that's what we're trying to correct here.
The Purdue Plan removes state and local premium taxes from health insurance policies, provides a state credit for small businesses that enroll workers in a high-deductible health insurance plan, and allows consumers to deduct HDHP premiums from state income taxes. The legislation also allows insurance companies to reward customers who make healthy behavior modifications by depositing money into their health savings accounts or offering lower deductibles.
Insurance companies are in the business for insuring risk, and I think this gives them the flexibility. It gives them the opportunity to reward healthy choices in life. As I said, we're doing that in property casualty with the results of driving, but we have been forbidden to do that in the health insurance industry.
One group that may not benefit from this measure is the working poor. A 2006 Kaiser Family Foundation report indicates that the combination of a health savings account and the premiums associated with a high deductible health insurance plan could consume 15% of a poor family's income. But the bill's sponsors say these health care options could save the state billions.
Yes, we have done the math. Every uninsured person costs each one of us approximately $3,865. Every uninsured person in the state of Georgia. So implementation of these recommendations will reduce Georgia's 1.7 million uninsured by at least 500,000 people, an estimated $1.9 billion with a B in annual savings.
The legislation will be introduced in the House tomorrow with Representative Mickey Chanel as the lead sponsor. Hours after the governor made that announcement, he presented his health care plan at the annual Small Business Day luncheon. Lawmakers' Andy Dixon has the details.
The Georgia chapter of the National Federation of Independent Business has declared health care solutions for small businesses one of its top priorities for the 2008 legislative session. Governor Perdue introduced his health care plan to Federation members, saying the plan addresses many of the group's concerns.
As a small business owner myself, I know what you all to contribute to our state. But I would also suggest to you on the issue of health care, it's time to fish or cut bait for the small business people of this state. You either need to get behind these things and support them, or frankly, I don't want to hear about them anymore, if you know what I mean. And that's really what the issue comes down to.
The Federation State Director says members have expressed overwhelming support for similar health care solutions.
What I can say that we do that is very intriguing about the plan is the tax credits for small businesses who purchase health savings accounts. We found in a recent survey of our membership that over 75% of those respondents believe that small business tax credits are a way to alleviate the problem of affordable health insurance in the state currently.
The Federation is looking at other controversial issues this session, including the Great Plan. The group supports the elimination of property taxes and the expansion of the statewide sales tax. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Andy Dixon.
After a year-long study, the Joint Commission on Transportation Funding released a comprehensive report today recommending a number of solutions for Georgia's transportation challenges. Lawmakers' Bridget Snapp is live with more. Bridget.
David, anyone who commutes in the metro Atlanta area could tell you at least one congestion nightmare. Officials contribute the problem to Atlanta's tremendous population growth and a severe lack of transportation funding. At today's press conference, members of the committee guaranteed that legislation will be introduced this session to provide the much-needed funding.
We've been throughout the state of Georgia, including the Atlanta metro area. We've got a great team that's bipartisan, and it's some rural, some suburban, and some urban. And we wanted that to be a part of our study committee in order to get a perspective from all of Georgia.
Senator Mullis went on to highlight some of the committee's recommendations.
Value engineering, an overall concession plan, public-private partner initiatives. We're also recommending the maglev transit rapids from Atlanta to Chattanooga. Hot lanes.
Hot lanes are high-occupancy vehicle lanes that allow single-occupancy use for a fee. The committee also recommends an expansion of Metro Atlanta's mass transit system and backs Governor Perdue's proposal of a state infrastructure bank providing low-interest loans to local governments for transportation projects.
We have about $200 million in federal monies that come to the Department of Labor, Department of Human Resources, Department of Community Health, DOT. We're hauling people on different vans in different directions. We need to unify all those systems and have one good system whereby the public can actually ride on those vans as well.
We're 20 years behind, so we have to have public-private initiatives. We have to have concession agreements. We have to look at toll roads, and we have to look at referendum initiatives to let the voters vote on projects that they like.
Now, the different solutions for funding the committee's recommendations range from looking to the state and federal governments to private funding to transportation taxes. The recommendations will be introduced during the next few weeks in the form of 19 pieces of legislation. Reporting live, I'm Bridget Snout for Lawmakers.
Thank you, Bridget. The House today voted to limit the time judges may take to review the initial appeal in death penalty cases. House Bill 578 was sent back to committee late in the session last year when appellate judges objected to some of its provisions. Representative David Ralston said that those sections have been revised.
It only impacts one part of the appeals process, and that's the first time filing of a petition for habeas corpus in death penalty cases. And what it does is codify some timelines so that we can streamline that process, putting deadlines on both parties for the filing of briefs after a hearing, and also putting a timeline on the court to make a ruling or to file a report indicating why they have not ruled. And hopefully keep some of these appeals from languishing for a long period of time.
House Bill 578 passed without opposition. It moves to the Senate. The presiding judge in the Brian Nichols courthouse shooting trial agreed to step down today after being quoted in a New Yorker article saying that Nichols is guilty. Representative Barry Fleming has been a critic of Superior Court Judge Hilton Fuller and the millions of dollars that have been spent on the Nichols trial thus far.
Quadruple murders are uncommon to begin with. Quadruple murders in a courthouse where a judge and two officers of the law and a court reporter were killed are highly unusual. So it was an unusual case, but it was not complicated in the sense that what happened was pretty elementary. Somebody killed 4 people. There was not much of a defense to be had for whether he did it or not. There was a defense about mental insanity. And unfortunately, what this probably turned into was an effort, we feel, by people who oppose the death penalty because they know they can't change the law here in the legislature to try to subvert the law through the judicial process. And that was part of the problem with Judge Fuller's handling of this case, is that he allowed that to happen.
Judge Fuller is a retired DeKalb County judge who took over the Nichols case when all Fulton County judges recused themselves. Representative Fleming says this case points to the need for legislation changing how murder cases are overseen.
Well, one thing is the idea that maybe senior judges should not try death penalty cases. It is one of the more contentious types of criminal cases to try. There is a check and balance in our state between having elected judges and also responsible for moving cases through the court. And that check is the people being able to decide, are you doing a good job as a judge? With a senior judge, you don't have that opportunity. So that was probably one of the problems that came out of this situation. Another thing was a check on the ability of a judge in this situation to allow basically $2 million to be spent and not have a case brought to trial. So I think you'll see some reforms possibly try to come through to prevent that from happening in the future, to make sure that there's a check on a judge's ability to order from the state to pay fees in a case such as this. I think Judge Fuller did the right thing by stepping down at this point. Unfortunately for the taxpayers and for the victims of these families that have been waiting almost 3 years now, one wishes it could have come earlier and we could have saved maybe up to $2 million and a lot of grief for the people who have suffered this loss.
It's not immediately clear who will replace Judge Fuller in the Nichols case. The trial was suspended indefinitely after the state public defender's office cut off funding to Nichols' lawyers.
We'd like to recommend a website that's a valuable resource for information about the Georgia General Assembly. Go to www.legis.ga.gov. That website is a great research tool we at Lawmakers use on a regular basis. And it was Forestry Awareness Day at the Capitol today, and the big issues this year were the future of carbon credits and talking up Georgia as the nation's bioenergy corridor. Governor Perdue kicked off their luncheon held at the Georgia Freight Depot.
I know that we'll emerge with a business-minded conservation plan, and hopefully one that everyone in this room stands to benefit from, on carbon sequestration. Our 24 million acres of forest offset CO2 emissions, and I can tell you today there's a good chance that carbon credits will be a reality in this country. We need to be prepared for them, and y'all need to be counting them so we can trade them and we know what we got. We're working with our federal partners to ensure that as we move forward, we balance the economic development concerns with the stewardship for our land going forward as always. We want folks across the country to look to Georgia, to our state, when they start buying carbon credits. And we want them to think of Georgia, and that means that we need to be prepared.
There are a lot of challenges out there, but we also have some great opportunity. It's a very exciting opportunity from the alternative fuel side with forestry. I think that's very exciting, great promise. The project in Soperton that's moving dirt and moving on, and hopefully a year from now we'll be producing ethanol. Georgia is becoming a great leader in the nation for creating alternative energy and having diversified energy sources. In other words, we're not going to be focused on one source. We want to create energy, ethanols or whatever, out of any source that we can. But I do say this, I believe that forestry will be the lead dog in the pack in the alternative energy business.
Two bills addressing the state's water crisis unanimously passed the Senate Natural Resources and the Environment Committee this afternoon. The first bill, sponsored by Senator Chip Pearson, is the Water Conservation and Drought Relief Act. It's aimed at helping counties to increase storage capacity of rainfall water. It provides state money to fund up to 40% of the cost of obtaining permits for the construction of new reservoirs and 20% of improvements to existing reservoirs. The second bill, sponsored by Senator Bill Cowsert, gives the General Assembly the power to oversee the EPD as it implements the new statewide water management plan.
As current law provides, the legislature does not have oversight over the EPD or over any of these future rules and regulations that may be implemented. So my bills attempt to restore that oversight to the legislature so we can remain involved in this process and have our input as to what are appropriate rules or regulations for water management practices and water conservation practices.
Former North Carolina Governor James Martin spoke before the Senate Science and Technology Committee today, and this public hearing was not about legislation, but new EPA air quality regulations that could go into effect as soon as this March. Governor Martin, who now represents the Carolinas healthcare system, believes that reaching lower ozone levels would be hard and expensive and could cost the metro Atlanta area billions in federal funds if the proposed goals are not reached.
The immediate penalty is it would cut off federal highway funding. And you try to imagine what effect that would have on the congested interstate highways around this area. It would make it worse. And if it makes it worse, it means that cars are going to be in gridlock, they're going to be idling for longer periods of time. That's going to make the ozone exposure worse. What they're saying in this new rule would require somebody to figure out how to reduce not only for automobiles and factories, but for the small shops. The small operations around the community, and it would be extremely difficult for them and very costly for them.
Committee Chairman Cecil Staton explains why he decided to hold this public hearing and what role committee members can play.
The levels that are being discussed right now cannot be achieved with current technology without enormous impact upon our economy. So we want to encourage our congressional delegation to be engaged on this issue and to make sure they take what steps perhaps they can take in their oversight of the EPA through funding and other ways to make sure this doesn't happen.
And Governor Martin says the study that the EPA is basing their new findings on is flawed and believes members of Congress can urge the EPA administrator to make the right decision.
The administrator ultimately will see that his staff doesn't have very good evidence as to why they should do this. The study that they base it on, the scientist who conducted that study has already told them that they misinterpreted his evidence.
Now, the studies which Governor Martin based his findings on were done by the Georgia Industry Association, who surveyed 45 counties.
A resolution that would make English the official language of Georgia was taken up by the House Judiciary Non-Civil Committee today. Lawmakers Minu Hosseini has more with that story.
House Resolution 413 would make an amendment to the Georgia State Constitution to prohibit requirement of any language other than English to be used in any documents, regulations, orders, transactions, proceedings, meetings, programs, or publications. The legislation says that making English the official language would encourage economic and commercial activity.
It's so important that English is the official language. It makes sure that people assimilate into our culture. It should be, and it needs to be protected. The more you learn English, the better you can take care of yourself, the more money you make. English is the language of business in the world.
Due to the length of the meeting, the committee decided to hold off voting until a later date. Until then, the legislation will remain within the committee for further discussion. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Minu Hosseini.
Legislation that would extend benefits to grandparents who raise their grandchildren received a do-pass recommendation from House Judiciary Civil Committee yesterday. Senator Renee Unterman, who sponsors Senate Bill 88, explains.
The Care of a Grandchild Act is broken up into two sections. The first part is giving the grandparent or the great-grandparent the power of attorney and their ability to be able to take care of their grandchild or great-grandchild.
Now, the second part of the bill sets up a program that provides eligible low-income grandparents funds for child care. The proposed program would be administered by the Department of Human Resources and requires caretaking grandparents to enroll.
It sets up a structured program. Families have to be 200% of poverty or below. This part of the program, you actually have to participate in an area council on aging program and participate with them, and they set up the standards so that you know how the program is going to be implemented.
Robin Eschman of a support group called Grandparents Raising Grandchildren explains why she supports the legislation.
On a limited income, it's hard. These grandparents, you see some of these grandparents that had a retirement and a pension, and all of a sudden they have these kids, and before they know it, everything they have saved is gone. But it's worth it because they're taking care of these kids.
Again, Senate Bill 88 was given a due pass by the committee and now goes over to House Rules. And organizers of the 2008 Intel International Science and Engineering Fair were greeted in the Senate this morning. This high school science competition is scheduled to be in Atlanta this May and includes 30 Georgians this year. Senator Dan Moody shows his enthusiasm for the event.
There will be over $4 million, that's right, over $4 million in scholarship awards for these bright young scientists and inventors. The competition will take place this spring at the Georgia World Congress Center on May 11th and through the 16th, and students from 47 countries and all 50 states will be in town. And we'll have about 1,200 judges with PhDs here just to determine who walks away with the awards. We'll need that many judges because 1 out of 5 of these students already have a patent or a patent pending on their projects.
Now, Senator Moody says that this event is going to generate over $10 million for the Georgia economy.
Planned Parenthood and pro-choice advocates met today for their weekly Women in the Halls initiative. These groups plan to lobby at the Capitol every Wednesday to work against legislation that seeks to limit women's access to birth control and abortion. The group is also instituting a program called Take Action to take place every other month and to urge Georgia's citizens to defeat House Resolution 536.
Today, the Senate adopted a resolution declaring today a Future Not a Past Day, formerly known as Georgians Against Child Prostitution and Trafficking. The Future Not a Past organization fights against the exploitation of children. Lawmakers Keosha Jackson has the story.
Members of this body, on behalf of the citizens of Georgia, hereby recognize January 30th, 2008 as a Future Not a Past Day at the Capitol.
Advocates from the Future Not a Past organization were present in the gallery during the Senate session today, and Senator Don Balfour recognized the group for their efforts.
We appreciate these groups that are up here today that are working on this issue and trying in their ways to end some of this.
Kathy McCullough of the Future Not a Past campaign stated that the group is seeking funds for a new censor and are supporters of Senate Resolution 445.
We're asking for full funding for our regional assessment center, and that is an assessment center where the law enforcement, when they pick up runaways, can take girls where they'll be safe and can have the appropriate assessments done on them. And then also for a Senate and House study committee to look at this entire issue in all its components and decide what kinds of bills and funding streams we need to really put an end to the prostitution of children in Georgia.
Senate Resolution 445 is the resolution that would create those study committees. The resolution has passed the Senate and currently awaits approval from the House. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Keosha Jackson.
Governor Sonny Perdue spoke at a press conference last week for the Art from the Heart exhibit. Minu Hosseini was there and has the story.
The portraits displayed here in the rotunda commemorate and memorialize the men and women of Georgia who gave their lives in Iraq and Afghanistan. I personally want to thank the artists who participated in this project, and thank you very much for giving us a reminder of the vitality that these men and women once enjoyed.
The Art from the Heart exhibit features the work of artists who donated their talents to honor the lives of Georgia's fallen soldiers. Artists create oil paintings of the soldiers, which are then donated to their families.
We decided to do Art from the Heart. A small group of artists decided to do this because we wanted to put a face with the names of the soldiers that we hear about dying. And we wanted to let the families know that they're not forgotten.
This display will be featured here at the Capitol until February 2nd. Another display will be shown at the Art Station in Stone Mountain between July 7th and August 24th. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Yuni Hosseini.
You can learn more about Art from the Heart by watching GPB's broadcast of State of the Arts. That's tonight at 9 p.m. Well, it may be a far cry from the Grand Ole Opry, but today the Southern Gospel Guild Female Vocalist of the Year serenaded the House of Representatives.
I've been traveling now since 1980, and it is an honor to live in a free country, a country that will allow me to travel around with my sister and my family singing gospel music. And I just wanted to do just the Star Spangled Banner and just dedicate this song to all the troops in Iraq and all of you veterans who have literally fought for my freedom. I am proud to be an American.
That was very nice. Coming up tomorrow, the Senate Governmental Oversight Committee will consider two bills that deal with the future of Grady Hospital, and the Senate Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee will hear a bill on dogfighting that was recently passed by the House. We'll have those stories and all the latest Capitol news tomorrow night at 7. And if you have missed any part of this Lawmakers broadcast, tune in tomorrow morning when Lawmakers repeats at 5:30 a.m. You can also keep up with all the action under the Gold Dome daily on your local GPB radio station during Morning Edition, All Things Considered, and evenings at 6 p.m. on Georgia Gazette. Now, stay tuned for Secrets of New York. Tonight's episode features Sights Unseen. That program is coming up next here on GPB.
And that's our broadcast for this, the 8th legislative day of 2008. I'm Inwandi Lawson.
I'm David Zelski. Have a great evening.
Production of Georgia Public Broadcasting.